Today's the 28th of Cheshvan, the 29th of September. I neglected to mention yesterday that Thanksgiving is always on the Thursday, which is even more appropriate because Hod we usually translate as Thanksgiving. The fifth day of the week is Hod, and so it's very. It's always on the last Thursday of November. So, and today is the 28th of Cheshvan, which is the 80th birthday of Rav Ginsburg. So we wish him an easy recuperation, at least 147. The way I daven every day is tens mores of years. I don't know if there's a word for it in English. There's scores, which is 20, but I don't know about 10. There's dozens, I guess. 44 at the very end of the war. And so the whole thing about him and the Rebbe's father. In any case, the Rebbe's father passed away in 44. That was a big, it was a strong connection.
The Rebbe was here, or the Rebbe was in America, or was in Europe?
No, he's still in, he was in America already. It was America. Yeah, but his father was in Alma Ata.
Yes, the connection between Levi and
yeah. He was born 9 months after he passed away.
Who?
Rav Ginsburg. No. He was born 9 months after the Rebbe's father passed away. And you can see in their style, they're very, very similar.
His name is for the Rebbe's father?
No, I'm just saying that he was born 9 months after. Okay, no, he wasn't. They didn't call him Levi Yitzchak. He's just Yitzchak Feivish. He's not. They weren't Lubavitch.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the grandparents were, but nobody remembered even. Yeah, but not from Lubavitch, from Chabad, from Kapost.
Kapost.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're on 264. We started the second paragraph, but I don't remember exactly where we got to. Gadol v'Gibor, right. So there's a long section in Shar Yichud ve'Emuna. Here he says, "Ukutei Amorim Chelek Bet Perek Daled B'inyan Gadol v'Gibor." So now he quotes it. Okay. So we can pretty much get it from what he quotes. And there, it's asking about how do you understand Gadol and Gibor? Gadol usually is Gedula, like in our parsha, Vayigdalu HaNe'arim, that the two boys, Yitzchak and Yaakov and Esav, they grew up. But it has other meanings as well, because in the early Kabbalah, like we said, David HaMelech calls it Gdula ve'Gvura. He doesn't call it Chesed ve'Gvura. So there was a lot of controversy in the beginning. They couldn't understand why to switch the word from Gdula to Chesed. But there's many reasons to call it Chesed rather than Gdula. Even though in the end they do the same thing. Because by Gdulu HaNe'arim, so what does the Zohar say? So from the Zohar you see it's the same thing. Many, many times the Zohar will say that Gdula is Chesed. But they didn't understand why exactly. Until eventually what they came to the conclusion was that Gdula is talking about Chesed in the crown. When it says Gdula, it's like Rav Chesed. It's like great Chesed, great loving kindness. So in the Zohar, for instance, on Ve'gdulu HaNe'arim, it says Misitra de Avram, that they grew up from the side of Abraham. Because Avram is Chesed. What makes children grow? Love. If you don't water them with love, they don't grow. And that couldn't come from Yitzchak. So that's why the Zohar says, Ele toldot Yitzchak, Avraham olidet Yitzchak. That these are the generations, the offsprings of Yitzchak, the son of Abraham. Ele toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. And then it says, Abraham gave birth to Isaac. Why do you need to tell me that? You just told me that Isaac is his son. So the Zohar says he needed to tell me that because Yitzchak by himself would not have made them grow up, because he's missing the Chesed, because he's all Gvura. Yitzchak is all Gvura. So even just talking about Inyan Gadol v'Gibor is very, very auspicious for today, because it's Parshas Toldos, and that's how it starts. Avram and Yitzchak. So Avram is the Gdula, and Yitzchak is the Gvura. Uferush HaGadol imidat Chesed, Right? So like we said, Gadol means chesed, means loving kindness. והתפשטות החיות בכל העולמות, וברואים לאין קץ. And the way that loving kindness works is that it has no limits. It's the extension, the overbearing giving of life everywhere, in all the worlds. Where do we see that with Avram? That he raised both Yaakov and Esav. He didn't make a distinction. He gives everywhere. And Vayishmael, he said to Hashem, Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. Unfortunately, he said that, and then Sarah caught him at some point. She says, "Lo yirash ben ha'ma'azim b'nei Yitzchak." So eventually, she got him kicked out. But you call it the damage that already had been done. And where does the damage come from? Because Avram is Chesed, and Chesed doesn't see any limits. So even if someone is not worthy, it still gives. So what he's saying here is that initially, the world is giving. It's giving to everyone, and that's how everybody's life starts. Right? When we're in our infancy, usually for most normal people, this lasts until age 11, 12. Everything is chesed. The parents don't make conditions. They give you anyway. From age 12, 13, then they begin to say, okay, if you act this way, we'll give you. If you don't act this way, then we won't give you, and so on. There start being din, some consequences to your actions. But you have to start with a lot of chesed to get things rolling. Otherwise, they don't work. And there's no end to the chesed. Le'en ketz v'tachlit. Liot bruim me'ayin le'yesh v'kayamim b'chesed chinam. So that it can sustain these creatures that are completely disconnected from their source. They don't know what their source is. They don't care. They live for themselves. And they receive chesed chinam. They receive free loving kindness. ומידה זו היא למעלה מהשכלת כל הברואים והשגתם. שאין כוח בשכל שום נברא להשכיל ולהשיג מידה זו ויכולתה לברוא יש מאין ולהחיותו. So he says this chesed, for all intents and purposes, it's like undefined. Because it goes everywhere. It has no limits. So this a person can't understand. How can it be that this giving is able to sustain the world, to create something from nothing, meaning that the creation doesn't understand its source, doesn't recognize it, and to still give it life? We don't understand this because we don't do things that way.
The sechel itself is really gvura.
Right, and sechel likes to have definitions. So it's lost on it. But then he says, וכשם שאין ביכולת שום נברא להשיג מידת גדולתו שהיא יכולת לברוא יש מאין ולהחייתו, כך ממש אין ביכולתו להשיג מידת גבורתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, שמידת הצמצום ומניעת התפשטות החיות מגדולתו. And just as we can't understand the Gdula, we can't understand the Gvura either. We can't understand the Chesed, we can't understand the Din. Why? Because what's the problem with the Din? The Din means, let's see what he says, להתגלות על הנבראים ולהחיותם ולקיימם בגילוי, כי אם בהסתר פנים שהחיות מסתתר בגוף הנברא. This we certainly can't understand. That in Chesed you see the life force. You see what's being given. It says in Gvura you can't see anything, and yet it's sustaining life. What's sustaining the body? It says like the Chesed is giving the life force, and the Gvura is sustaining the life, and you don't understand where's well, I think the strongest muscle for this is, why does the body stop growing? Right? Why do the hands form the way they do? Why do the inner organs, how do they know to stop? How do they know to form a shape? How does that work? How does form work? Gvura is like the form in something, that there's an end to the growth. How does it know? We don't know. It's a big mystery. Like it's such a mystery that you can even, if you create an artificial organ, you can just let it work by itself. You don't have to stop it. Somehow it stops. So if you were to grow an artificial heart, the heart would shape in the right form. but we don't know what the mechanism is. What makes the cells stop growing as they reach the contours of the heart? There's no understanding of this. So on the one hand, it's creating the body, it's sustaining it. On the other hand, it's giving it limits. That's what Gvura is, giving limits. And this, he says, also nobody understands how this works. To say it another way is that when you want to educate someone, educating is the wrong word because educating is like information, that's the way people understand. But if you want to raise someone, chinuch, there's no word, I've never found a word for chinuch in English. I don't know, chanech mishu. Like to instruct them in how to be a mensch, right? So we try to use gvura, we try to put limits on the person, but inevitably we break them. It's almost always that way. And yet Hashem does it all the time, and He's mechanech the world, He's mechanech everyone, and somehow it works. And when He breaks when He breaks the person, he's not broken. He can always bounce back. It's a special thing, this גבורה, שהקדוש ברוך הוא מידת הצמצום מניעת התפשטות החיות מגדולתו מלרד ולהתגלות על הנבראים להחיותם לקיימם בגילוי כי הם בהסתר פנים, שהחיות מסתתר בגוף. There's life force in the body, but you can't see it. וכאילו הגוף נברא הוא דבר בפני עצמו, and it looks like it's created itself. But you know there must be a hand holding it, there must be something sustaining it, there must be something holding it together. ואינו כהתפשטות הזיו. So that's the quote from the Shar Yichud V'Emunah. So Gdula and Gvura, we usually think of them as already emotions, but he's saying these are also the powers that create being, and you need both. You need both the power of expansion and the power of limitation, and both of them are not understood. We were talking about 0-point energy at some point. So 0-point energy is exactly what comes out because of the cosmological constant, Einstein's cosmological constant. Because relativity says, Einstein's calculations say, that there should have been a lot more expansion. There's something holding the expansion back. And what is this? Or if you go the other way, there's something causing the expansion. He had some cosmological constant that had to be tweaked to make the universe fit the way it is, the way we see it. But so he, at the end of his life, he said that was his biggest blunder, that he added this cosmological constant that doesn't really exist. But today everybody agrees that something's going on. So instead of cosmological constant, they started talking about dark energy. It really started from 0-point energy. Then today it's dark energy. But the dark energy is not enough. I mean, all the dark energy that you could somehow have in the energy you can't see is still not enough to cause the expansion of the universe. So still something's missing. Anyway, so these things are a big mystery still. Nobody knows how they work. והמובן מלשונו בביאור, שהבריאה יש מאין וההסתר שהנברא הוא נראה נפרד בפני עצמו, הם שני דברים ונמשכים משתי מידות, חסד וגבורה. So he says that what we understand from him, from the Alter Rebbe there in Shar Yichud V'Emunah, is that creation, ex nihilo, something from nothing, causing the creation to look separate from its source, requires two things, both the expansion and the holding back. And they come from these two midos, chesed v'gvura. You need both of them. ואם לא היה נמשך מבחינת גבורה רק מהחסד בלבדו, אז היה בריאה יש מאין. רק שהיו הנבראים בטלים במציאות כביטול הזיו והשמש. It says, if there would only been chesed, then everything would have been something from nothing. In what sense? That it's defined. But everything would be like the world of emanation. So the world of emanation, everything there is completely nullified in Hashem. So there would be no sense of self. You couldn't have a sense of self. You would be defined, but you wouldn't have any sense that you're defined. You wouldn't understand that. I don't know what the kaf mem is. Kach muva sham lehedya. Something like that. So there's these two forces always working. So where do we see this? Chazal say, the sages say that when God created the world, He was expanding it until He said, "This is enough," and from that we get the name Shakai. She'amar lo lamod dai. So here there's a better explanation. Usually Shakai we correspond to the Sfirah of foundation of Yesod. But here what he's saying is that it's not Yesod and Chesed, he's saying it's Chesed and Gvura. Why is that better? What's going on? So, what's the holy name of Chesed? Holy name of Chesed is Kel, Aleph Lamed. And holy name of Gvura is Elokim. So, Kel is expanding and Elokim is limiting. He's putting a cap on how much it expands. So what does this mean? It means that without the Elokim, what does Elokim do? Elokim is the Teva, is nature. It's concealing God. So the way to think about it is that whenever you start to feel that God is becoming apparent in your life, so comes the force from Gvura and says, up to here. You can't because if I would not limit you, then you would have no sense of self. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? The kel is like giving you connection to Hashem, and then you're lost, as it were. Your sense of self is lost because you become nullified in the source. And then if there's no Elokim to stop it, if there's no nature to hold it, then you lose yourself. You don't know who you are anymore. It's like when a person is really deep in contemplation, so that can happen to them. And that's called the Itpashtuta Gashmiut, they call it. There were people that when they davened, when they prayed, they didn't come back. They were so deep in it that they couldn't come back. So what is this like? It's like Ratzov Hashov also.
This is documented.
The people who died this way.
Really?
In the throes, as it were, of contemplating God. Because they went too far with the kel, with the chesed. They went too far with it. So every time you think Hashem is going to appear, He's very, very, very powerfully apparent, there's something that caps it. Because what does Hashem want? He wants you to live. V'chai b'hem. He wants you to live and do mitzvot. He doesn't want you to completely lose yourself in the...
Is that why the Rebbe used
Right. And the Peldes, all these things were that they had to cap it in some way. Nadav and Avihu are the best example of someone who's documented, right? And they were in the throes. The way most of the Kabbalists understand it, especially the Or HaChaim, is that it wasn't a punishment. It was a consequence of going into the Holy of Holies and reaching an unlimited state of connecting to God, and so they couldn't come back. And their bodies were intact; they weren't burnt. They just died. It's like the neshama just left.
Is it like the Rebbe used to hold something gashmius?
Right? It could be. Same thing. Same idea. Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll have to end. So it gets more interesting as towards the end of the chapter. Okay, so B'ezrat Hashem next week. So just say one more word. That's why you need both Yaakov and Esav. Because it's very clear that the reason that Avram really raised both of them was because he saw the potential in both. So Esav wanted this world, and Yaakov wanted the world to come. He says, if all you want is the world to come, you're not going to do anything here. Esav is not inherently evil in that sense. Shmerla, by the way, he loves saying that if you read just what the Torah says about Esav, he's not a bad character. He's faulty like everybody, but he's not evil. Chazal already picture him like he's the worst thing in the world. But on the face of it, it's like Avram sees him, that he has his faults, but we need him. Why do we need him? Because we need him to check us not to lose this world. That's what he kept saying, that the way to reach Hashem is through this world. And Yaakov said, no, the way to reach Hashem is by going out of this world. And you need both of them. So Avram was smart enough to come and say, you need both of them. I want to raise them both. I'm not giving up on Esav. Okay, so that's,
You know why the girl was born? The Jew picks up a little bit his ass.
that's what they say. They cook us on a low fire. If it's on a low fire, it's good.
The minute you pick up yourself,
Okay.
he wakes you up.
Good.